How about now? How you doing, Amir?
Hello, Doctor. How are you?
Just fine. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. I'm just trying to go live on Facebook. So
Sure. Yeah,
you just give me 1 minute. I'm trying now because we want more attendees. So
absolutely. I'm sure Nick will be
yes,
joining us shortly.
yes. Yeah, Annika is here also.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, she's joining us. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Hello.
Hey there, Nika.
How you doing? How's everyone?
Yeah, we are so excited. How are you?
I'm doing well. Is it Amir? Is that how you say?
Yes, Amr. Yes.
Amr.
Amr.
Nice to
Okay.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too. We are so happy to have you here, and we are so excited too. And we are now live on Facebook also, so more attendees will be able to watch us. So this is great.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yes, and we are so happy to have you here. Actually, just let me brief you about this idea. After passing my exam, I used to listen a lot to the podcasts, and I said, why don't I do the same, but it will be in Arabic, and try to host different PCBAs, and so we can provide people with more specific information. We discuss different topics about ABA, and we started last March, and today it is the 13th session. So I'm so excited, and it is really very, very important topic, because we used to have lots of talks about, can ABA be applied in school settings? Some people thought that it is not applied and so forth. So I said, we will have this amazing meeting with both of you. So I will give you some minutes to introduce yourself, so also others can come to know more about you.
Okay. All right. Sure thing. Do you want us to go now, or do you want us to wait until
Yeah, we are already live on Facebook now, so we are listening.
Okay. Okay. I know Nika just loves this part of it. So
I hate this part of it. I hate talking about myself. I hate introducing myself.
Yeah, I will just need we need short IRT so I can translate, because I'm also want to translate it into Arabic, so lots of people also can benefit.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to go first, Nika, or do you want to go?
You can do the whole thing if you'd like.
All right. No, all right. So I'll make it very short, just so I have been in the field for since 2003, and as a behavior analyst, I've been able to use the science of human behavior to for different roles, a lot of leadership and coaching roles, to turn around failing organizations, turn around failing schools, and also build failing fighters up to become world champions, UFC champions, for anybody that follows like mixed martial arts. And so Anika and I got together, some years ago now. And Anika was a teacher for many years. She's an instructional designer. She has actually been an instructional coach. She's together, we deliver a lot of trainings to schools and help, improve student behavior, improve behavior at the classroom level and the school level. So we're a yin and yang that work together very well. I do a lot of content development. She designs that content into learning opportunities, and we love bringing out the best in people wherever, especially in schools.
Good. That's amazing.
Was that enough? I mean, I can keep going, Amir, but I don't want to give you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. I think you introduced also Anika, right?
Yes, that was that was for her. Yep.
Yes. Okay, that's amazing. So I will start with the most questions that I used to get from others. There are assumptions that EBA cannot be applied in a school setting or in a classroom setting. Is this correct?
Is it? Absolutely not. No. So there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what ABA is. And ABA is just really about arranging the environment in a way that brings out the best in the people. For example, for student in terms of behavior, or if you can imagine being an adult and being in a classroom where you're bored, or you didn't understand the curriculum, you can't make, nobody can make you be engaged and want to learn. You might sit there passively, but you're not learning, right? Because you're thinking about how much you don't want to be there. And if you just didn't understand it, well, you would need it presented to you at different levels. So it's not a change within you. That change occurs within the environment, if that makes sense.
Yes, definitely. So طبعا أنا سألت دكتور بولي إن في سؤال ديما بنسمعه من الناس إن يا جماعة الABA ما نقدرش نطبقه في مدارس. ما ينفعش، هو أصلا كلينيكال و1 on 1 وما ينفعش يتطبق في مدارس. طبعا بسبب الفكره الخاطئه ناس كتير جدا بتقول لك الABA ما ينفعش يطبق، لكن هو لا طبعا ده خطأ تماما. الABA ينفع ان احنا نطبقه في مدارس. الموضوع كله بيتعلق بقدرتنا ان احنا نرتب البيئه عشان نقدر نخلي الطالب يبقى اكثر انغماسا، اكثر اندماجا في الصف الدراسي. طب تخيل لو ان طالب عنده ملل، قاعد ساكن، ما فيش اي شيء يشغله، فطبيعي ان طبعا اكيد هتحصل بعض المشاكل السلوكيه. فبالتالي الموضوع كله متعلق بان احنا ازاي نرتب البيئه عشان نقدر نعطي الطالب اكبر فرصه ممكن ان التعليم يكون مفيد بالنسبه له. So Anika, you want to add something at this point?
Sure. I was just going to add, I don't know how much of your audience practices in homes, so provide behavioral services in homes. But it's very much like if you're going to a learner's home and you're working with that family, it's really fundamentally no different than working in the school. Topographically, it looks different. Yes. But in terms of the procedures, the tactics, the strategies are going to be the same. Also, too, when you're working in homes, we always talk about the adults and everybody needs to be on the same page to implement the plan correctly, right? Yes. Again, no different in school settings. We need to look at the adult behavior just like we look at the adult behavior, whether it's caregiver training or parent training, whatever you title it. It's similar in schools in that we need to get all the adults on board to help and support the student.
And that, by the way, Amir, that's for anybody that's here that's a behavior analyst. Do we know how many people here are parents and how many people are behavior analysts in our group here?
Okay, so is anybody here a behavior analyst or parent? You can just type for me. So yes, we have a couple of parents. Says Yusuf طبعا منورنا. Says Asma. Yeah, we have some parents here, and also we have some RBTs. Yeah.
Yay. My favorites.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we
I
have
love my RBTs.
Yes. Yeah, we have also some parents. So I will just translate what you said, Anika. طبعا لما أنيكا أضافت قالت إن لو أنت بتشتغل مع الطالب في البيت، أكيد طبعا في بيئة في البيت، وأنت بتشتغل مع أدلت في الجلسة بتاعتك، نفس المبادئ اللي أنت هتطبقها في البيت وفي الجلسة هي برضو أنت تقدر تطبقها في المدرسة أو في الكلاس روم أو في السكول سيتنج. فما فيش فرق. الABA ينفع إن إحنا نطبقه في أي مكان زي ما بنطبقه في الجلسات بتاعتنا الفردية، نقدر نطبقه مع نقدر نطبقه برضو مع في الصف الدراسي. So I will just there is one question about this the role of environment in triggering problem behavior. So what do you suggest for teachers in a classroom or in a school setting to deal with these triggers, or what we supposed to do to the environment in a classroom setting or a school setting so we can decrease the number of problem behaviors?
Okay, that's a great question. Whoever asked that, wonderful question. So what we like to think about is doing the things that are the simplest and have the largest impact on behavior. For example, setting clear expectations for students, right? A lot of people think students should just come in and know what they should do. But like, for example, in high school, or in any school where there's a lot of different teachers have different sets of expectations. For example, can you go get a drink of water? How do you get help? What do you do if you need to sharpen your pencil? Who can you talk to during a given assignment? And what should you be talking about? Is it everybody? And how loud should you be talking? Where do you need to walk if you need to go somewhere? So being very precise about what you expect. And a lot of, we found that a lot of educators, at least in the States, have not thought about all this, because all day long, there's stuff going on, right? What is your schedule and what are your expectations? Because a whole group activity is very different, say, than a small group activity, right? A whole group activity, the teacher's teaching and, the students are learning. But that shouldn't be the only activity going on. People will get bored with that. So there's small group, there's independent work, there's tests, right? There are all these other things that are going on that need to be precisely outlined. That's number one. Do you want to translate that? Because there's a bunch now.
أنا سألت دكتور بولي سؤال، قلت له إيه دور البيئة أو أنا كمعلم إزاي أتحكم في بعض الأشياء في البيئة اللي تقلل من احتمالية حدوث المشكلة السلوكية. عارفين إن البيئة بيكون لها دور، أحيانا بيبقى في حاجات بنسميها تريجرز اللي هي ممكن تعجل بحدوث المشكلة السلوكية. فهو قال أهم شيء إن يكون معرف الطالب التوقعات أو الأشياء المطلوبة منه، الأشياء المحددة المفروض أن يقوم بها حتى لا يضيع وقت منه، حتى لا يكون هو لا يعرف ما المطلوب منه تحديدا. فبالتالي ده يفتح له باب إن يكون سبب في بداية ظهور المشاكل السلوكية. Anika, you want to add something?
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay.
Yes. So, yes. So Dr. Paul was talking about the expectations and all the things, all of the activities in the classroom. And I would also add that you want to make sure that your environment and what's going on in the environment, is it engaging? Is it engaging for the student? One way to do that is incorporating cooperative learning in your lessons. So that is giving students opportunities to work together in groups, to engage in opportunities to respond. So giving them activities, problem solving, and depending on the level, these cooperative groups can work really at any level. They just need to be modified for the student, the classroom, to meet your students' needs.
أنيكا أضافت نقطة مهمة، إن أنا لازم الصف بتاعي أحاول إن أنا أكون مقسم الصف إلى مجموعات، أحاول إن أنا دائما أشغل أوقاتهم بأنشطة تعاونية، تقسيم الصف إلى مجموعات صغيرة، العمل التعاوني داخل الصف. كل هذه الأشياء بتقلل من احتمالية حدوث المشاكل السلوكية، وبتهيئ الطالب أكتر إنه ينغمس في الأنشطة. في النقطة المهمة أيضا إن أنت تكون موضح للطالب إيه الأشياء اللي هو المطلوب هيعملها، ويكون واضحة عنده التصورات للأنشطة اللي هيقوم بها. Okay. So
it could,
yes.
It could also look like asking questions differently. So asking the students questions differently, giving them a different way to respond, maybe using like dry erase boards or whiteboards where they can, you ask a question and then you say, okay, 1, 2, 3, go, and they hold up their answer. So you're getting different types of engagement, giving students, so like popsicle sticks where they have to, you might, pull, and the students are always, on task because they don't know when their name is going to be pulled and they're going to ask a question. So that increases engagement as well. So another strategy might be something like choral responding, where you ask a question and those students all respond at once.
Yeah, these are important concepts because they sound simple. But the first thing is we don't want students to behave just because they're supposed to. We want them to be engaged. And engagement in the learning, right? That engagement is incompatible with off-task behavior. So the more they're into what they're doing, the less likely they're going to be misbehaving. So, but what we're really talking about is getting students in touch with positive reinforcement. And so when there's like that fast pace of instruction and they're having to answer lots of questions and they're having success with it, and it feels like it's fun to them, or the content's meaningful, this increases the likelihood that they're going to be engaged and drastically decreases the likelihood that they're going to be disrupting or, doing other things.
اوكي. طبعا هنا في يعني نقاط هامه. انيكا ذكرت ان انت كمعلم المفروض تبدع في خلق انشطه داخل الصف، بحيث ان الطالب دائما يكون مندمج في هذه الانشطه، ويكون الانشطه دي متنوعه، وانت تبدع في ان تخلي كل طالب بيشارك بشكل ما، بحيث ان الطالب ما يكونش عنده وقت ان هو او في فرصه ان هو يكون سبب في انه يدخل في مشكله سلوكيه او اسباب. دكتور بولي أضاف برضو إن الموضوع بيتعلق أكثر بإن أنت تخلي الطالب عنده فرصة أكثر لأنه يحصل على التعزيز من خلال إنه يكون على طول مشغول، على طول بيزي في شغل مطلوب منه، في أنشطة مختلفة متنوعة هو بيشارك فيها. البيئة دي، الشكل ده، النموذج ده بيقلل من احتمالية حدوث المشاكل السلوكية. قارن الشكل اللي احنا بنتكلم عنه بصف في ضوضاء، في إزعاج، في الطالب حس بملل، ما فيش أنشطة نمطية. طبيعي جدا إن هذه البيئة هتكون تربة خصبة لحدوث المزيد والمزيد من المشاكل السلوكية. I will just want to tell them that if you have questions, please just write them, whether here in the Zoom or in the Facebook, and I'm going to ask Dr. Boli and Anika. So another question that I got from before we start the Zoom, they said, in case there is a problem behavior that occurs in the classroom setting, as a teacher, what is the most important thing that I should start with? طبعا أنا بسأل هنا بقول إن لو حصلت مشكلة سلوكية من طالب داخل الصف، إيه أهم الخطوات اللي أنا أبدأ بيها أتعامل مع المشكلة السلوكية طبعا من وجهة نظر الإي-بي. Okay.
Yeah. So you want me to start, or you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Well, the one question I would ask with that, with problem behavior, are we talking about one student, or are we talking about multiple students?
No, I'm talking here about one student.
One student. Okay, so even for that one student, I'll tee this up, Dr. Polly, is that we also want to look at what's going on in the environment and if there are certain systems in place. So going back to what Dr. Polly was talking about, these expectations and the procedures and routines of the classroom, is there a system for classroom management? All right, I just wanted to tee that up.
Yeah, so I think, so let's start with the simplest thing. And that is, what's really important is that behavior can be very frustrating, and we tend to want to punish and don't do this, get angry at people. And I understand, I do as well. But the thing is that if you think about it, if you work for somebody that was behaving that way, your leader was working for you, would that bring out the best in you? Do you get up in the morning and want to go into work? Do you go above and beyond, or do you do just enough to get by and only when they're looking? And that's what happens when we use punishment or fear of consequences. And also, when you hurt your relationship with the student, they might actually start doing things that upset you, right? Because it starts to feel good. Is this counter control? It starts to kind of feel good to them to just, be a thorn in your side, so to speak, right? Does that make sense? So the way they respond is going to be very important. All right. Now, part two to that. Can I do part two, Amir, or do you want to translate that first?
Yeah, I want to translate it because this part is very important. طبعا أنا سألت قلت إيه الخطوات الأولى أنت كمعلم صف طالب قام بإساءة تصرف أو حصلت مشكلة سلوكية، تمام؟ فأنيكا قالت very important إن إحنا نشيك البيئة، تشيك السيستم، تشيك النقاط المهمة اللي إحنا اتكلمنا عنها، الاكسبكتيشنز، الوضوح، التفاصيل المهمة، إن كل طالب أكيد بيكون في شيء مشكلة في البيئة هي اللي بتؤدي إلى إن الطالب تحدث هذه المشكلة. دكتور بولي أضاف نقطة أيضا مهمة، وقال إن مهم جدا إن لما تحصل مشكلة سلوكية ما نبدأش أبدا بالعقاب أو نبدأ إن إحنا نصرخ على الطالب، أو كما يحدث في كثير من طبعا تعرفين من المدارس إن أنا ببدأ على طول بالعقاب. ده بيقول تخيل لو أنت تشتغل واخطأت خطأ واللي بيشغلك صرخ عليك أو كده، هل ترى أنت هتبقى مبسوط من حاجة زي ده تحصل؟ تمام. يبقى إذن أول شيء عندما تحدث مشكلة سلوكية نشيك على البيئة، شوف السيستم بتاعنا. النقطة الثانية المهمة، لا نبدأ إطلاقا بالعقاب. ده الكلام اللي احنا بنقوله. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so thank you. And then, so the next piece of it is that before you do anything, understanding why the behaviors occur, right? So what we would call, what's the function and the purpose? Now, I'm going to start off with two general reasons, and Anika is going to unpack it a little bit more, okay? And it generally, when somebody, the same thing with adults, right? If adults aren't performing to a standard or students not behaving to a standard, two reasons. It's a can't do or don't do, right? Won't do, right? So it's a skill deficit or it's a motivational deficit, right? So the response is different. If it's a skill deficit, we need to make sure that we give them the skills to do it, right? If they're not doing their work because they don't have the skills, we need to scale back our instruction, how they're learning, right? If it's a motivational deficit, now we need to look at some other things like, do they have the tools to do it? Do they have an aid that helps them along the way? Is there a process for figuring out the math? Do they care about getting good grades on the math? Are they being observed? Are they getting feedback? And how often are they getting feedback from the teacher in the classroom? And what kind of feedback is it? Because again, if it's a lot of feedback aimed at correcting behavior, as opposed to incrementally reinforcing, right? Recognizing the small growth improvement, that's going to hurt relationships and not help them. And if we don't have good relationships in the classroom, the student's not going to want to be there. They're going to be checked out. Again, the same way as adults, if we go to work and we don't have a good relationship with the management and the leadership, that we don't want to be there either. They're just like us.
اوكي ثانك يو سو ماتش. طبعا في نقطتين هامتين جدا اضافهم دكتور بولي. قال ان ايه اول سؤال اساله لنفسي لما تحصل مشكله او تحدث مشكله سلوكيه، نسال نفسي ليه؟ لماذا حدثت المشكله السلوكيه؟ وذكر ان قد يكون سبب حدوث المشكله السلوكيه حاجتين: اما ان الطالب عنده مش قادر او مش عارف او لا يستطيع القيام بالمهمه، او ان عنده ضعف في مهاره معينه، السكيل ديفيسيت. ويقول مهم جدا ان انا اقيم اذا الطالب مش عارف المهاره، يبقى انا مهمتي كمعلم ان انا اساعده لكي اعلمه هذه المهاره. اذا دي نقاط غايه في الاهميه. اما ان هو ما عندوش هذا القدر الكافي من المهارات بيخليه ان يعمل المشكله السلوكيه، يبقى انا دوري هنا قبل ما افكر في اي تدخل ان انا احاول ان انا اعرف ما هي المهارات الناقصه عند هذا الطالب وبالتالي اشتغل عليها. وبرضه مهم جدا ان احنا نبعد تماما في بدايه حدوث المشكله السلوكيه عن العقاب او العصبيه، لان ده بيأثر على العلاقه اللي بينك وبين الطالب. زي انت لو شغال عند حد وهذا الشخص مجرد انت اخطأت يعني تصرف معاك بطريقه سلبيه، اكيد العلاقه دي هتتاثر. بيقول ان لو تاثرت العلاقه بين الطالب وبين المعلم اكيد ده هيخلي ده يفتح باب لمشاكل اكثر واكثر. So do you want to add something for this?
So just to tag on, so Dr. Pauly was talking about the can't do or won't do, right? So a motivational deficit versus a skill deficit. And we really want to focus in on function of behavior. So that's the EATS, that acronym. So it's escape, attention, tangible activity, or sensory. So behavior just doesn't happen for no reason, right? It happens because there's something that's maintaining that behavior. It's getting the person in touch with some type of positive reinforcement or something that they want access to, attention, from someone. They want, an item or activity, or they need some type of sensory input. And so that's important to understand why the behavior is happening. And that's where we're looking at the function of behavior, because once we understand the function of behavior or the why it's happening, then we can intervene and we can address that behavior based on the function. So if the function is escape, let's say the student, wants to get out of a task or away from a task or avoid a task, then one of the interventions might be to find a way to keep them on task for a period of time and then give them a break, right? And then systematically increase that time on task, right? So understanding the why is going to help you understand how you might intervene. And so it's important for even teachers in schools to understand function of behavior. Make sure they're not inadvertently reinforcing problem behavior. So if the function is to escape a task and they're sending them out of the room, or they're, sending them to do other things other than that task, then they're inadvertently reinforcing that behavior.
Okay,
it's a powerful concept.
Yeah.
Yes. There is طبعا في نقطة أنا وأنا بترجم نسيتها. دكتور بولي كان قال أنيكا also قالت إن ممكن يكون سبب المشكلة السلوكية نقطتين. النقطة الأولى السكيل ديفيسيت، إن الطالب ليس عنده المهارة، والحاجة الثانية موتيفيشن، ما عندوش دافعية. فأنت دورك كمعلم إن أنت تشوف سبب المشكلة، هل بسبب إن في سكيل ديفيسيت، يعني الولد عنده مش عارف يعمل المهارة، ولا هو ما عندوش دافعية إنه يقوم بهذه الشيء المطلوب منه، فبالتالي بيدخل في المشكلة السلوكية. أنيكا أضافت برضو مهم جدا، أنت كمعلم يجب أن تعرف وظائف السلوك. السلوك البشري لا يحدث بشكل عشوائي، يحدث لوظائف. يجب أن تعرف الأربع وظائف بتوع السلوك اللي احنا عارفينهم، وبالتالي عشان تفهم السلوك أكتر يجب أن أنت تتدخل حسب وظيفة السلوك. التدخل بتاعنا بيختلف حسب وظيفة السلوك. لو أن الطالب بيهرب، بنسميه السكيب بيهيفير وسكيب مانتيند بيهيفير، بيهرب من حصة معينة، من درس معين، من ليسن معين، دوري أنا إن أنا أحاول أن أنا أعلمه بطريقة معينة إنه إزاي يهرب، بس بطريقة مقبولة، إن أنا أعلمه إنه يطلب بريك، وبعدين ياخد بريك مرة، بعدين بريك مرة تانية، وبعدين أبدأ أزود الوقت العمل وأقلل وقت البريك. So this is what Anika said. Now, Dr. Bolly, I have a question is, now, the problem behavior occurred, and I, as a teacher, didn't take any punishment procedure. I start to understand the function. So now let's suppose that I know the function of the behavior. What is the next step, or how I can determine the function? What are the tools that I can use as a teacher to know this behavior is maintained by attention, by escape, or by accessing to tangible, or whatever? How can I, a teacher, use it? Okay.
Yeah, really good question. And I want to start off with this. We don't have the whole reason we wrote our book, Quick Responses, was about how to apply punishment correctly. We're not saying you should never apply punishment. The problem is creating an environment that's coercive, right? Where we're using punishment all the time, right? It should be a very small percentage of what we do. And it should just be used to stop behavior briefly, but we move on. And once we got behavior moving in the right direction, we want to use positive reinforcement, right? We want to have an environment rich with positive reinforcement, which means like a place, an environment where students are engaged in learning. They like learning, right? The one where they feel good to be about around the teachers, because the teacher is helping them a lot and giving them the tools they need to be successful, and setting goals that are achievable, and giving them lots of positive feedback. And when you have all these things in place and you do correct behavior, right? We do use punishment to correct behavior. It's not going to throw the relationship off. It's not going to hurt things. It's going to help things. But when we rely on punishment and only responding to what's going wrong as opposed to what's going right, they're not going to want to be there. And that's where you get all sorts of issues. So that's part one of it. You want to translate that first, or should I continue?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So دكتور بولي بيتكلم هنا، بيقول إن إحنا بعد ما أنت تعرف الفانكشن بتاع البروبلم بيهيفير، مهم جدا زي ما قلنا واتكلمنا، أنت تبتعد عن استخدام العقاب. تحاول تخلي البيئة غنية، تحاول تخلي في فرص أكبر إن الطالب يلامس التعزيز الإيجابي، في فرص أكبر إن هو يحصل على التعزيز. يبقى إذا إحنا مش عايزين، هو بيقول إن إحنا ما بنقولش إحنا مش هنستخدم البانشمنت. أحيانا في بعض الأحيان بنضطر نستخدم البانشمنت، والبانشمنت موجودة في البيئة بشكل طبيعي وبتحدث، لكن إحنا عايزين نستخدمها بنسبة قليلة جدا وبنسبة ضعيفة جدا، في مقابل إن يكون البيئة ثرية بالتعزيز وثرية بالفرص المواتية إن الطالب يحصل على التعزيز بشكل أفضل، عشان تتكون علاقة طيبة ما بين المعلم وبين الطالب.
Okay. So now the next part of it is, how do you know? And this is kind of the staple of our field. What we do is we look at data, and now it can be simple data, just like our observations. Like, we don't always have to have, a ton of stuff, right? And like, for example, if a student calls out and other students are laughing, right? And, this is, and it seems to happen under math conditions. Well, we have two thoughts there. Is it happening because they can't do the math, right? If we look at data over time, in other words, this keeps happening. Why is this always happening during the math? So we maybe have two hypothetical reasons. Maybe it's because the student, or maybe three, maybe can the student do the math, right? So in other words, if I provide them a problem to solve, and maybe I provide some additional reinforcement, like, hey, if you do this problem, you'll get this thing that you love. If they can't do it, well, it's a skill deficit, right? And so that would let you know the function of the behavior there. Now you have two other things, right? Maybe it's a motivational deficit, and we got to divide this in two. Maybe they can do the math, but now we look at, well, there's kids laughing, right? Now, is it that they're bored with the math, so it doesn't have meaning to them, so they're trying to escape doing it for just because it's boring? Or is it because the students are laughing, right? So again, we have to look at this data and say that whenever they call out, here's what happens reliably. And if you find that, let's say you can remove student attention, right? You set expectations that nobody is to laugh if something happens, and the laughing stops, and the behavior continues over time, then that data might suggest that, you know, it was not functioning for the laughter, but functioning to escape the work, right? But maybe it's like they test it out and they say, you know what, I'm going to break this work down into smaller chunks for them. And if that changes behavior, right, again, you're kind of testing things out. You have a hypothesis saying that, you know what, the student just is not engaged in the work. I'm giving it too long, right? Or maybe it's like, you know, they're bored with the way that's being presented, right? We can present it differently, and maybe that will change things. But the first thing is like looking at the data and knowing that, you know, that's not occurring because of skill deficit, because no matter what you do motivationally, if they can't do it, all this other stuff's not going to work. And Anika, I'm sure you have some things to add on here.
Just a couple of things. I think you said it pretty clearly, but really thinking about, that academic, match. So if, if as Paulie said, it's under math conditions, you might want to think about breaking up into smaller chunks. And, if that's something that works, then that the learner was trying to escape the task because it was too difficult. So really just honing in on those functions and, taking a little bit of data, understanding like what happens, those antecedents. So what happens before the behavior. So under these math conditions, it's time for math. And then you see behavior spike up. Then something about math. Okay, that's that first clue, right? And then the behavior occurs. So that's that B, that behavior. And then the consequence, or, how does the teacher respond? If the teacher says, all right, you don't have to do it, or, out of the classroom, or do something else, or whatever that consequence is going to maintain that behavior. It's going to keep it going because it's being reinforced. So it's really important to look at the A, the B, and the C, right? And really that C,
Yes.
that C is what's going to maintain. So those antecedents, what happens, and that C, how's to keep that behavior going?
And when you translate, Mayor, just also make sure that people understand this is not just student behavior. This is our behavior as well. We operate in the same thing. We're driving and we antecedent, we see a stop sign, right? Behavior, we stop. Consequence, we avoid getting an accident and avoid getting some ticket, right? Antecedent, we're thirsty, right? We're thirsty and we see a water machine, right? So behavior, we go put money in the water machine, we get water out, which is the consequence, and we drink it. So this all maintains our behavior. And of course, we'd learn complex chains of behavior in order to get consequences that might be more delayed. The younger the child is, the more they need the consequences to occur immediately, right? And be more salient and tangible for them. As we get older, we can delay consequences. We have goals that we can work towards, but it's those who are successful that can delay immediate gratification, right? What we're talking about is delaying immediate reinforcement because they know that reinforcement is coming in the future. So we'll go through the grind in order to achieve that stuff.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will just translate. And طبعا أنا سألت دكتور بولي وانيكا المفروض أعمل إيه؟ أنا إيه الأدوات اللي ممكن أستخدمها عشان أقدر أتعرف على وظيفة السلوك. طبعا أنا هلخص لكم اللي قيل بالظبط. دكتور بولي أكد أهمية إن يكون عندك داتا تقدر إن أنت تستخرج منها وظيفة السلوك. داتا بمعنى إيه؟ معنى إن أنت تكون عندك ABC بتاعتك، بتجمع بيانات عن السلوك ده حدث إمتى، في أي ظروف، في أي أوضاع، في أي حصة، مع أي معلم، في أي مادة، في أي جزئية في المادة. فبالتالي عشان تقدر تعرف هل ترى السلوك ده حدث في الوقت ده ليه، وبالتالي من خلال تحليلك للبيانات دي بتقدر تعرف إن سبب السلوك هو إن الولد عايز يهرب، حصلت في الرياضيات فقط، حصلت في الاجتماعيات فقط، وهكذا. أنيكا أضافت نقطة مهمة جدا، هي أهمية إن أنت برضو يكون عندك تحليل الاي بي سي اللي هي الانتيسيدنت والبيهيفير والكونسيكونس، وقالت مهم جدا نخلي بالنا من الكونسيكونس عشان احنا احيانا دون ان ندري ربما نعمل رينفورسمنت للبروبلم بيهيفير، ومهم ان انت بناء على الاي بي سي اللي انت بتجمعها بشكل مستمر، هل ترى اول ما قلت للطالب يلا عندنا رياضيات ايه اللي حصل؟ ايه اللي جرى؟ هل بدأ يبدو عليه مثلا الضيق، الضجر، بدأ انه يبان عليه انه مش بيحب الرياضيات؟ فاقدر اعرف من خلال الداتا بتاعتي ان في علاقه ما بين الرياضيات وبين المشكله السلوكيه. هقدر اوصل لوظيفه السلوك ميتا لما اعتمد على الداتا. ملخص الكلام اللي قيل، اهميه ان انا لما اجي اعرف ايه وظيفه السلوك اكون دائما معايا البيانات بتاعتي اللي انا بعتمد عليها، وما اعملش اي شيء الا لما انظر الى البيانات واتاكد منها. So, doctor, let me suppose that, okay, I know now the function. So the problem behavior occurs. I observe it. I didn't intervene until I was sure about the function of the problem behavior. Now I know the function. What are some of the procedures, the strategies that you suggest in dealing with different functions? But let's say, let's start with the majority of what happened in a classroom, which is related to escape. So for example, if the problem behavior is maintained by escape in a classroom, what are some of the strategies you and Anika would suggest to the teacher to do? طبعا أنا بسأل هنا سؤال إن خلينا نفترض إن في عرفنا الوظيفة، وليكن هذه الوظيفة إن الطالب يريد الهروب من المهام أو يريد الهروب من الأداء الأكاديمي. إيه هي بعض الاستراتيجيات والنصائح اللي نستخدمها عشان نتعامل مع مشكلة سلوكية زي كده؟
Yeah. I would keep this as very simple as possible. And I like to frame things in a way that makes sense for people, right? That's what I do. So you think about it for yourself. If you went somewhere, right, and you were learning, right, you were taking a course, what would make you want to be there, right? What are the important pieces that would keep you highly engaged and want to come to school every day, right? So put yourself in the student position and think about what you would want to learn, how you would want it to be presented. And you can't think about it, you have to stay away from the thought that, well, they need to do it just because, right? That can be a bad thought. You know, they need their education. Well, that's great, but remember that education, right, getting that degree is very, very far away. And what we know about behavior is that what's most immediately reinforcing to people is what's going to have the largest impact on their behavior. And so, Anika already mentioned some things like, asking, lots of good questions. I said at the beginning, making sure that the instruction and the topic is meaningful to students, right? So presenting it in a way that's lively, fast-paced, has some pertinence, not only to their future life, but to their immediate life, right? So, if I don't know, if they were a fan of some cartoon character and this is a young classroom, right? Involving that character and making a storyline and lesson around that character so it's fun for them, so it's engaging for them. Using cooperative learning strategies so they can interact with their peers. That is all important, right? Incorporating technology as much to the best possible, as much as possible into the teaching so it's fun. So using all these different formats can really make it very, very engaging for the students, because if you don't do that, then they're going to want to escape. And the big thing is making sure you're not presenting instruction at a level that's beyond, too far beyond their current level. It should make them stretch a little bit, right? Because we need to get them to learn, but it should be building or scaffolding upon what they already know, if that makes sense. Because it'd be like me or Anika going to a calculus class. That was a long time ago. What am I going to do in there? I might sit there and just be nice and smile, but I'm just want to leave, and at some point I'm going to be like, screw this, I'm dipping, and nothing you can do that's going to make me stay there, because what am I doing? It's wasting my time. So we want students to feel like they're getting something out of education. And by the way, I feel that's all the way up at the university level. I want my students, and Anika's a professor as well, we want our students to be engaged. We feel like we're there to serve the students. And so as a teacher, teachers are classroom leaders. They're leaders in there. And I believe that leadership should be there. We're there to support the people, right? We're servant leaders, and we're serving the needs of our people, right? The students in our classroom. So what is it that they need? Not that they're there for us, right? I think the thought should be that we need to create an environment that meets their wants and their needs. And when we do that, they're going to learn the most that they can. We want them to come to school, and we want them to want to learn. Waniká, you have anything to add to that?
I don't know if you wanted to translate because that was a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, you just give me 1 minute. I'm trying to write, so I will
see
not
you.
forget
Yeah.
anything. I'm afraid that I will miss any piece of this
Do
amazing.
your best. It's okay.
Thank you so much. So دكتور بولي لما اتكلمنا ان اذا عرفنا ان البروبلم بيهيفير سببها هو الاسكيب، فالمجموعه من النقاط. النمره واحد ان احنا عايزين نشوف الاول ان يكون عند الطالب دافعيه، الام هو يكون عنده ان هو حابب يشتغل او عايز يشتغل. وانت كمعلم المفروض تبدع في محاوله انت تخلق عنده هذه الدافعيه من خلال اقل من اكثر من شيء. النمره واحد ان انت حط نفسك مكان الطالب. هل الانستراكشنز اللي بتعطيها للطالب فيها تخلق جو من الدافعيه، تخلق جو من المرح؟ فدي ما بيقول ان انت حط نفسك مكان الطالب وحاول تتخيل ان انت تكون في نفس مكانه. يا هل ترى التاسكس اللي انت بتديها له هل هي يعني مشجعه، هل هي محفزه، هل هي متنوعه؟ يقول كمان المهم ان انت الطريقه اللي بتعطي بيها الاوامر بتاعتك، الانستراكشنز بتاعتك للطالب، حاول انت تنوعها تغيرها. حاول ان انت كمان تستخدم الاشياء المحببه بتاع الطالب، لو بيحب كرتون معين، بيحب شيء معين، كل ده عشان تخلي التاسك اللي انت بتقدمها للطالب اكثر جاذبيه واكثر فعلا. حاول انت تخلي الانشطه والنشاط انه يشتغلوا مثلا مع اصدقائه، مع زملاته، يكون مثلا نشاط مع هيز فريندز في داخل الصف، فبالتالي يكون النشاط اكثر واسهل وابسط عليه. والمهم جدا ان احنا لازم نعرف احتياجات الطالب، النيدز بتاع الطالب ايه، عشان قبل ما احاول ان انا احط اي انترفنشن. يبقى اذا دي مجموعه من النصائح للتعامل مع السلوك اللي زي كده. تمام. أنيكا, you can now, your turn.
My turn. All right. So those of you, if you are practicing in homes, and I know I talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but if you're practicing in homes and you're working with learners at home, right? And I want you to think about your session, right? And in your session, you are running trials, let's say. So you're running trials, and then the learners, off task, they're hanging out, they're trying to escape the area, right? The teaching area. Okay. What do we need to do differently, right? We need to think about some things. Maybe our reinforcers, we don't have, stuff that they like that, is going to motivate their behavior, right? Or, we've got these same materials that are kind of boring and not exciting. So as Dr. Pauly mentioned, we want to enrich and engage the environment, right? So we might use, a character that they like. So it's no different in the classroom. So think about that. If you see this problem behavior, you observe this problem behavior happening, what do you need to do with the environment? Something needs to change, right? And so if a learner is engaged, that's incompatible with problem behavior, right? So if you're engaged and you're answering questions and you're responding and you're cooking along, right? Just like if you're working with a learner at home and you're able to run those trials, go, and you're just getting all this like good responding and reinforcement and woohoo, and it's a great time. The same can be applied in the school. Yes. You just have to look for those cues. And again, topographically, it's going to look different, right? It's going to look different in terms of, what strategies you're going to implement to enrich that environment. How are you going to get more active responding? What questions you're going to ask? They're going to look different than maybe what you would do at home with the learner. But again, the procedures are the same.
Okay, thank you so much. طبعا كنا بنتكلم عن النقطة بتاع السكيب بيهيفير. فأنيكا بتقول ان تخيل ان انت بتعمل السيشن بتاعتك في البيت، انت بتعمل ترايلز، ديسكريت ترايلز مع الطالب في البيت، وبتشعر ان الطالب بموضوع ممل بالنسبه ليه، وانه مش عايز يشتغل وبيحاول يتهرب، ومره يعمل كده ومره يعمل كده. ايه اللي انت المفروض نفس التصور اللي احنا بنواجهه في السيشن ات هوم ممكن نواجهه برضه in a classroom setting، اللي هي البيئه نفسها، الطريقه بتاعتك، ان انت ازاي بتعطي الانستراكشن، ازاي ان انت تعمل تخلي الانفايرمنت نفسها مشجعه، تخلي انريتشمنت في الانفايرمنت، البيئه متنوعه، في انشطه كثيره، في افكار كثير، في حركه، في نشاط، في تنوع في نبره الصوت، في طرق مختلفه انت بتحاول ان انت تنوع الانستراكشنز، بتغير الطريقه اللي بتتعامل بيها، تحرك هنا شويه، تحرك هنا شويه. ده كل الاشياء دي بتقلل من ان تبقى البيئه محفزه ان تحصل مشاكل سلوكيه. اذا this is for escape behaviors. So let's say, Dr. Bolly, that some of the behaviors maintained by attention. What we supposed to do?
So with student attention?
Yes,
So,
yeah, like
so one of the things would be having very clear expectations, right?
okay.
So part of those expectations are like, if somebody calls out, right, we make sure that you don't respond, right? You ignore, and we reinforce people for ignoring that calling out behavior, if that makes sense, right? So, right, hey, this is great. You guys did a good job for it, right? So that's very important. So we want to set those expectations, reinforce the classroom as a whole and individuals who feel like they need attention. Now we have to think about, who is it they need attention for? So if it's attention from the teacher, well, the teacher should focus, give them more attention when they're doing the right thing, and try to remove the attention when they're doing the wrong thing. That's number one, okay? Number two, if they desire student attention, then arrange conditions for them where they're going to get student attention through your different cooperative learning strategies, right? If they want to be a classroom leader, bring it under your instructional control and provide them opportunities to get that kind of attention for handing out, papers or collecting them, those kind of things. So they're getting the attention for the right behaviors, not the wrong behaviors, right? But I want to say that, so I want to talk about punishment for a second with this as well, because we want to create this environment where they're doing the right thing. That does not mean we should not correct misbehavior. Again, the problem with correcting misbehavior is if that's all you're doing, right? So we talk about doing it as a 4-to-1 ratio, because you're going to get more of the behavior that you recognize, right? The more appropriate behavior you recognize, the more that behavior you're going to get. The more you're recognizing inappropriate behavior, you're going to get more of that behavior. But when you do correct misbehavior, and you should do it consistently, unless it's functioning for your attention as a teacher, you want to do it calmly, you want to do it briefly, and you want to do it privately, okay? So one of the things that we know is that nobody wants to be embarrassed. And if we think about, if you've ever been somewhere as a leader or as an adult at work, and if you got called out publicly, that's an embarrassing thing. And you will tend to not want to be around that person that embarrassed you. But if you correct behavior privately as much as possible and calmly and briefly, then you're not going to hurt your relationship. And the easiest way to think about this, Amir, is as a relationship bank. The more you positively reinforce the behavior that you want to see, right? Recognizing incremental growth, setting clear expectations, engaging them with a good learning, right? Just being nice to them, right? The more you do that, every time you do, it's like putting money into this relationship bank. Every time you have to correct misbehavior, it's like taking money out of it. And just like a bank, the more you take money out, if you've withdrawn more than you've put in, then you get overdraft fees. In this case, it comes at the expense of more misbehavior and more issues. Does that make sense? You think that'll translate well?
Yeah, I will. I'm taking notes. I'm just trying to. So طبعا احنا سألنا دكتور بولي على attention behavior. لو ان الطالب بيعمل السلوك للفت انتباهك انت كمعلم، يعني مثلا بيصرخ في الصف، بيعمل اي شيء على اساس انه يلفت انتباهك انت كمعلم، المفروض تعمل ايه؟ دكتور بولي قال مجموعه من النقاط المهمه جدا. نمره واحد، ان انت لازم تكون واضع clear expectation، توقعات واضحه وحدود معينه، يكون عارف الطالب، تمام، ان مثلا اذا الطالب بيعمل كده عشان يلفت انتباهك، لو انت اعطيته هذا الانتباه ده ربما يؤدي الى ان السلوك يتعزز مره اخرى، تمام. يبقى اذا خلي بالي ان انا اكون عارف وظيفه السلوك كويس. النقطه الثانيه، قال ان انا اذا عرفت ان الطالب بيعمل السلوك ده رغبه في الانتباه، فانا احاول ان انا اعطيه ادوار في الصف، زي انه يكون مثلا كلاس روم ليدر، فبالتالي بياخد مني انتباه بشكل غير مباشر، وده هيقلل المشكله السلوكيه. يبقى اذا النقطه الثانيه ان انا ممكن احاول ان اشبع عنده رغبته في انه يحصل على انتباه مني من خلال اعطيه بعض الادوار في الصف المدرسي، عشان بحيث ان هو يشعر ان هو بياخذ انتباه مني، تمام. النقطه المهمه الثانيه، النقطه المهمه ان انا ممكن اعطيه انتباه من وقت الى اخر، يعني من وقت لآخر أحاول إن أنا أعطيه هذا الانتباه بشكل غير مباشر بحيث إنه يقلل عنده السلوك. وأضاف نقطة هامة جدا، بيقول إن لو حصل misbehavior داخل الصف أحاول قدر الإمكان إن يكون التصحيح ده يكون بشكل هادي. أنت كمعلم ما تنفعلش، أنت لو انفعلت ممكن السلوك يأخذ منحى آخر. النقطة الثانية أنت تكون هادئ جدا، ولو قدرت أن أنت تصحح هذا السلوك بشكل بينك وبين الطالب عشان تتجنب أن أنت تحرجه مع الآخرين، لأن احنا زي ما قلنا إن دي العلاقة ما بينك وبين الطالب زي كأنت زي البنك، نحب إن احنا نضيف ليها كثير من الأشياء الإيجابية أكثر ما نأخذ منها من الأشياء السلبية. So Anika, you want to add something to the attention behavior?
Yes, I do. So also thinking about some specific strategies like in the moment, right?
Yes.
And then also trying to tease out, is it, teacher attention that the student is seeking, or is it peer attention? And so something quick that you can do, and I've used this strategy with adults during workshops and trainings, but sometimes you can figure out pretty quickly if it's attention, it's attention from the teacher that the student wants. And you do that little pivot praise. And so all of the students who are engaging in the correct behavior or the appropriate behavior, because I love the way that, Bobby is sitting. Oh, I love, thank you for getting your, book out. Yep, you're doing it right. You're on task. And then the student who's misbehaving is going to look around and say, oh, they're getting all this attention from the teacher for doing these things and doing what the teacher asked them to do. So if you see that behavior shape up in the moment, then you know, oh, okay, this is what I need to do. This is teacher attention. Also, too, sometimes, we don't think about, especially if the student wants that teacher attention, there are some things, and I think Polly touched on this when he said, give them a leadership role, or maybe like a help the teacher. Some teachers have like, job opportunities in the classroom where they help out and do different jobs in the classroom. Sometimes it's something that, the teacher could reward the student's behavior by, having lunch with the teacher, having, working on a special assignment with the teacher, or sitting in the teacher's chair. So these types of things can be incorporated as reinforcers, right, for appropriate behavior, but also, a quick, kind of, oh, let me see what's going on here, is that pivot praise. And so, praising all of the students who are doing the correct thing.
Okay.
So that was just a little strategy.
Yeah.
A note on that only works, and it's a powerful
if the teacher has a
strategy.
relationship with the students.
Right.
That's right.
They
that was the other
establish
piece.
themselves as a reinforcer. If they don't, then it's not going to work because they're not going to care about their praise.
Yes. No, it's not. And that's a very good point.
Yes. So I will just translate now. طبعا أنيكا أضافت نقطة مهمة، إن أنا كمعلم لازم أعرف هو السلوك بتاع الطالب بتاع الانتباه، هل اللي يقصد بيه جذب انتباه المعلم ولا طالب؟ يعني هل الطالب بيعمل السلوك ده عشان يلفت انتباهي أنا كمعلم، ولا عشان يلفت انتباه طالب آخر؟ فهي اقترحت حاجة مهمة جدا، وقالت إن أنا أحاول ديما أعزز سلوكيات الطلاب اللي هم بيشتغلوا. لما الطالب يحس ان ده الاستاذ بيتواصل اكتر وبيطبطب على الطالب ده وبيشجع ده، وشايف محمد بيشتغل، برافو يا محمد انت قاعد تكتب، وشايف ناصر مش عارف بيعمل ايه، شاطر يا ناصر انت بتعمل كذا، فده بيشجع الطالب ان هو يحس ان لا انا سلوكي انا يعني انا عايز احصل على التعزيز زي ما بيحصل باصدقائي. قالت حاجه تاني، انت ممكن تحاول انت تعطي الطالب زي جوبس داخل الصف. ممكن مثلا تجيب الطالب جنبك وتشتغل معاه انت بنفسك، ممكن تخلي انت وهو تشتغلوا في نشاط معين، وكل ده تستطيع انت تتغلب عليه كل ما كان ان الطالب في جود ريليشن شيب بينك وبين الطالب، ان في علاقه طيبه بينك وبين المعلم. حتى لو الطالب اساء التصرف، انت كمعلم لازم ايضا تحاول قدر الامكان ان انت الموقف ده يضيف الى العلاقه اكثر مما يخصم منها. So now one of the most important questions is, now we talked about the functions of the behavior and how to deal with the most two common functions, attention and escape. Now there is one question with, okay, if there is a misbehavior, whatever was that behavior, okay, that happened in a classroom, as a teacher, what are the strategies that I should follow generally to decrease this misbehavior? Okay, we know the function, we know everything, but now generally, what I'm supposed to do?
Okay, so this is a really good question, because with all the focus on positive reinforcement, a lot of teachers aren't armed with tools to respond appropriately to misbehavior, right? So I'll give you some things to consider, right?
Okay.
First of all, we have to consider is it a new behavior or has it been around for a while? Okay. So a new behavior, one that just started, should be treated differently than one that's been around for a while, because maybe somebody just didn't know, you know what I mean? Maybe they haven't gotten the habit yet, or maybe it was an accident. You haven't fully established your expectations. As long as it's not like a dangerous behavior or something that's severe, then there are simple things like, for example, using pre-correction. Like pre-correction means that if we expect a misbehavior is going to happen, like lining up and kids are excited and they want to talk, we just remind them of the expectation just prior to lining up, so it increases the likelihood that they're not going to engage in that behavior. Okay. There could be clarifying what the expectation is. Amir, can you tell me what the expectation is for lining up in that care, right? That's a good way to respond. Remember, this is for mild and early stages misbehavior. There could be proximity control, just simply moving closer to the student. There could be a gentle reprimand. Amir, you know better than that, there can be like literally humor, like if it's new behavior, like, all right, and you called out and you said something silly, like, all right, Amir, don't let me tell your mom about that, or something like that, and laugh about it. This is early misbehavior. And there could be also planned ignoring, like, I'm just going to deliberately ignore this because I believe they're doing it for attention. The other students are ignoring it, right? So that's for mild misbehavior, right? Now, do you want to translate that, or do you want me to move up to moderate?
Yes. Okay. Very important. أنا طبعا سألت دكتور بولي لما يبقى في مشكلة سلوكية، يعني سوء تصرف من الطالب داخل الصف، ما هي الاعتبارات العامة بشكل عام بغض النظر عن الوظيفة اللي أنا أعملها كمعلم داخل الصف؟ طبعا هو ذكر مجموعة من النقاط. قال أول نقطة لازم إن أنا أشوف هل السلوك ده جديد، يعني السلوك اللي بيعمله الطالب ده هل هو سلوك جديد لم يقوم به الأب، ولا هو سلوك قديم؟ وبالتالي لو هو سلوك جديد لازم ان انا احاول اتعامل معاه بشكل مختلف. الحاجه الثانيه مهمه جدا، قال لي ان انا لازم احاول اوضح للطالب زي ما قلنا التوقعات بتاعتنا. يعني هو لازم يعرف هل المفروض انا اعمل ايه دلوقتي، اذا اصحابي كلهم بيكتبوا المفروض انا اكون بعمل ايه. قال نقطه ثانيه بروكسيميتي، ان انا احاول انت تقرب من الطالب، تحاول انت تقترب منه. قال ان احنا ممكن نذكره تذكير خفيف بالسلوك اللي المفروض يقوم به او بالتوقعات بتاعتنا اللي احنا طالبينها منه برضه بشكل بسيط جدا، بحيث ان هو بحيث ان هو يكون عارف ان السلوك اللي عمله ده يعني غير مقبول او غير مرحب به. تمام. نقطة تانية، قال احيانا لو السلوك مش خطير ومش مزعج ممكن انا اعمل زي تجاهل بسيط ليه، بحيث ان الطالب برضه عشان احنا نحاول ان احنا نتعامل بشكل جيد مع السلوك. So Anika, you want to add something to these considerations?
Sure. So one of the things, and just for our parents out there too, like these strategies will work. Again, they look a little different. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. Some of those immediate strategies like the proximity. Now with proximity, how many of you, and I've done it, I'm guilty of it. I have been, I have children, so I get it. You're busy with something else in another room and you're calling your child to come here, right? I know you're laughing because you've done it. We've all done it as parents, if you're a parent, right? And you call them. So I'll call Olivia, come here, Olivia. So instead of calling their name a million times, one thing you can do is call their name once. And then if they're not moving their little bodies in 3 to 5 seconds, then you're going to go and get them. Mommy said, come here. And then ask them or tell them to do whatever it is that they need to do. So another thing is reprimands. So Polly touched on that. If there's lots of reprimanding going on and you're not seeing behavior change, that's because you're just teaching the child, the student, not to listen to you, right? And especially if you're not following through. So if you're reprimanding and not following through with whatever it is you say you're going to do, then you're just teaching the child that you don't mean what you say, so they don't have to listen to you. So if you say, first you need to do this, then you need to do that, and if they don't do whatever it is that you're asking them to do, you tell them what is going to happen if they don't do the thing that you're asking them to do. And if they don't do it, then you need to follow through. So again, that we see that in classrooms, a lot of reprimands, sit down, do this, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because what's the corrective? What's the consequence? What's the tool that they're going to pull out to use when the different stages of behavior? So that's what Paul is saying. Like, you need a tool. You need to be able to correct behavior, because if you have nothing to correct behavior and teach the student, the child, what you want them to do instead, then you're going to be out of luck.
Yeah, okay. So let me translate this part. أنيكا طبعا احنا لسه بنتكلم على اعتبارات عامة التعامل مع المشاكل السلوكية. فهي أضافت إن مهم جدا البروكسيميتي. بروكسيميتي يعني أنا أقرب من الطالب، ومهم إن أنا أوضح له المطلوب أو الشيء المفترض إن يقوم به، بحيث إنه يتذكر إيه اللي أنا توقع أنا كمعلم ليه. يعني مهم جدا إن أنا أذكره بهذا الشيء. كذلك أضافت، طبعا احنا بنتكلم على البيئة الصفية كلاس روم سيتنج، يعني لازم نكون واضحين على ان احنا هذه الاستراتيجيات نتحدث بها عن الكلاس روم سيتنج. فبالتالي بتقول اضافت نقطة ان اهمية ان يكون الطالب عارف الكونسيكونس، عارف التوابع، عارف ان انا اقول له المفروض انت تعمل كذا بعديه كذا، تمام، واذا ما حصلش كذا هيحصل كذا كذا. وبالتالي اذا الطالب لم يقوم بالمطلوب منه، يبقى هنا لازم ان انا اعمل الكونسيكونس اللي يخلي ان الطالب ما يدخلش فيه السلوك هذا. يبقى اذا لازم انت تكون موضح للطالب، عارف ايه اللي المفروض يعمله، ايه اللي المفروض يعمله، ومهم الريمايندر ان انت تذكره بالاشياء اللي انت تتوقعها منه. So Dr. Bolly, I will just open now the questions for parents who are with us here, if you don't mind, you and Anika.
Well, Amir, I want to say that I only started with low-level misbehavior. There's still more.
Okay.
And I think it's important to equip everybody in here with this next level, because remember, that was for early stage misbehavior. And by the way, one of the things that Anika mentioned was pivot praise, right? Pivot praise for mild and early stage misbehavior. Great.
Okay.
But if
so
now,
can we go to the like let's add this part also? What we're supposed to do if there is something big, something dangerous, or
that's right. Well,
yeah,
well,
or
I'm going to get
complex.
right. You have three categories, because you have mild, moderate, and now you have high intensity behavior, right? So I want to start with the moderate behavior now, because this is where a lot of people get confused and they need these tools. Okay. So if this is not new behavior, it's consistent, and or it's moderate, here are some different options, right? So one, we've all heard of probably timeout. And timeout is a great strategy to use if they're in time in, essentially, right? If what they're doing is engaging, they want to do the things that they're doing. So like, for example, if it's a sport, right? If somebody loves engaging in sports and you say, I need you to go on a timeout, that's a really great functionally based response to a misbehavior, because it's aversive to them. But if it's somebody that doesn't like to play sports and you say, I need you to go to timeout, well, that's actually a time in, because they don't want to be under those conditions. So when we send students out of the classroom who don't want to be in the classroom, or out of the school who don't want to be in the school, we're actually sending them to a place that's more highly reinforcing. Over here, we call it going from the ditch to Disney World, somewhere they don't want to be to somewhere they do want to be, right? And so there's different types of timeouts. Like there's a timeout away from a favorite object, timeout away from a small group. There's timeout at the desk where they can just put their head down, or timeout in another location. Again, you got to be careful that you're using a timeout. It's functionally based, right? That's not that they want to be away from that location, right? So that's timeout, right? That's good to use if they're engaged in whatever they've got going on. And so yes, Enan, yes, this is valid for anybody. You know, as an adult, a timeout would be like, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing at work. Yeah, stay home for a day and you're not going to get paid, right? You're not getting access to your reinforcers. And so that would be a really effective use of timeout, but it would only be effective if, like, you had been warned ahead of time. It's already an expectation and part of the disciplinary system. If somehow, some way, you were just told to stay home without pay and you didn't know that was part of your system, you would be pretty upset, right? So there would need to be warnings and all this stuff along the way. So this is why when we set up consequences in classrooms, we want to involve the students in those. They need to know up front, these are the things that are going to occur, and here's why, right? As well as the rewards, the reinforcers. Hey, if you do great, here's what's going to happen. If you engage in these behaviors, here's what's going to happen. Here's why. You're not learning, so that's not okay. You're disrupting other students. That's not okay. So I don't want to have to deliver these consequences to you, but I will, because I need you to learn and I need the other students to learn. Okay. So it's important to have that. So there's timeout. Now, what do you do if a student's, doesn't want to be in that situation? Well, there's a time owed. And a time owed really essentially says is, for every second that you're acting a fool, you're being inappropriate, it's going to cost you a second off of these things that you like to do. So let's say, for example, there's recess coming later, or they love eating lunch with their peers, right? Or they got that favorite thing that happens in the classroom. Well, for every second or minute that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to have to pay later on. And it's going to be a second or a minute from doing those things, right? So that's time owed from reinforcement. There's restitution, and there's simple restitution. Like if you throw a piece of paper, you need to pick it up. Now there's also overcorrection, which means if we've asked you to, if you've done this more than one time, instead of just picking up one piece of paper, now you have to pick up all the papers within the classroom, right? That's overcorrection. We're making them do it more. There's things like response costs. And that is, we really like students. Let's say you have a classroom management system or a home behavior management system where they're getting points for engaging in certain things. For every 15 minutes they're doing the right thing, they get a point. For every time they do a chore, they get a point. For every time they complete a task in the classroom, they get a point. But there's also loss of points, and that is, for every time you do something, you lose a point. You just have to be very careful for this one, because if you set up conditions where all they're doing is losing points, it's going to be aversive and they're not going to work. So I'm very careful with this one. There are things like demerits, and that is like, it's like, instead of taking away something, it's like every time you act out, like somebody's calling out, they get a demerit, right? They see they're getting like this point. But the points only involve taking away something or applying that punishing consequence when they get, say, 5 demerits or 10 demerits. Like maybe there's like, we're going to call your parent, but it's going to be after you get 5 demerits, right? It's whatever it is that they accrue so much that this punishment is going to come. So this is really good for students who are like maybe impulsive or engage in a high rate of behavior where we're trying to reduce it, right? So it's almost kind of like they're being given 4 or 5 chances before this happens. And the goal being that we're going to reduce those to 3 chances, to 2 chances, to 1 chance eventually. So we no longer have to give it, that we just apply the consequence. All right. So that's good for the moderate. Do you want to translate that one?
Yeah. Okay. طبعا.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. No problem. طبعا دكتور بولي بيتكلم على بعض الاستراتيجيات. طبعا بيقول ان المشاكل السلوكيه بتنقسم الى اقسام. في اقسام مشاكل سلوكيه بسيطه، تمام، في مشاكل سلوكيه متوسطه، في مشاكل سلوكيه خطيره سيفير. فهنا اتكلمنا عن المشاكل السلوكيه المتوسطه. احنا نذكر الناس ان احنا هذه الاستراتيجيات كلها بنتكلم على ان هي في الكلاس روم، في السكول سيتنج. بيقول ان مهم جدا ان الطالب لما يحصل مشكله سلوكيه لازم يكون فيه كونسيكونس. هذه الكونسيكونس تختلف. ممكن مثلا على سبيل المثال تكون تايم اوت. تايم اوت لو انه مثلا في نشاط جماعي وعمل سلوك معين، بالنسبه لي النشاط الجماعي ده معزز جدا، كانه عمل سلوك معين لازم هو يعرف ان هذا السلوك خطا، فبالتالي انا بستخدم مع التايم اوت. خلينا فاكرين ان احنا ما بنروحش ابدا للبانشمنت بروسيجر الا لما نكون استنفذنا كل سبل الرينفورسمنت، تمام؟ عشان بس احنا قلنا قبل كده مستحيل نبدا بالبانشمنت الا لما نكون استنفذنا كل الرينفورسمنت بروسيجرز اللي احنا استخدمناه. وبالتالي في ذكر هو مجموعه من الاستراتيجيات اللي احنا ممكن نستخدمها لما يكون المشكله السلوكيه مايلد، يعني متوسطه، زي التايم اوت، زي مثلا على سبيل المثال الاوفر كوركشن، زي مثلا ان هو الطالب مثلا لو مثلا رمى ورقه لازم ان هو يشيلها، تمام؟ فذكر مجموعه من الاستراتيجيات اللي احنا بنقدر ان احنا نستخدمها مع المشاكل السلوكيه المتوسطه. طبعا دلوقتي هنروح للمشاكل السلوكيه المعقده اللي هي المشاكل السلوكيه الخطيره. Okay, so now I just finished summarizing the last part.
Yeah. Okay. So now
Wait, Paul, I
yeah.
just want to add for our parents at home too, The biggest takeaway from this, and I won't spend too much time because I know we have to get to the last piece, but really it takes planning. So you can't just send your child to timeout and think that they're going to know what that timeout means. So I just want to kind of double down on that, what Dr. Polly said, in that, you know, you have to plan for it. Like the student or the student needs to know what the timeout entails, and you have to plan for it. So if you're sending the child to timeout in their room and they've got all of their fun things in their room, that's not timeout. So you have to send them somewhere in the house or somewhere else where you can still monitor that they are in the timeout in the way that you've asked them to be in that timeout. So timeout takes planning. Any of these strategies take planning, you know, how they're going to get to timeout, what lands them in timeout. So what behavior that they engage in that gets them in timeout, and how do they get out of timeout, and what's the time limit for timeout? And that goes for any of these things, so that everybody is aware, the adults are aware and the child is aware of what the consequences are, and also like how they redeem, how they get out of timeout, how they can, you know, earn back those points if they lost points. So all of that takes planning. Can't just go, oh, it's this. You got to plan for it.
أنيكا أضافت نقطة طبعا، قالت ان احنا مش نستخدم التايم اوت، لازم يكون الطالب عارف يكون التايم اوت بالنسبه لي فعلا تايم اوت، مش ان هو مثلا يروح بقى الغرفه والايباد والتلفزيون والفيديو جيمز والالعاب المحببه بالنسبه لي. ولازم اكون محدد ايضا الوقت بتاع التايم اوت، وكمان يكون محدد عارف يعني الاشتراطات بتاعتها عشان تكون الاستراتيجيه ايضا فعاله بالنسبه للطالب. دكتور بولي, I just told them that we never use punishment by itself until we are done with all reinforcement, and then we can go to the punishment. And also whenever we put a punishment procedure, there should be with it also in the same package a reinforcement procedure and a replacement behavior. So just correct for them, like we are not relying only on the punishment procedure.
Right. Well, I think that's important.
It should be part of the, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say yes. And I think what you're saying is that it's part of the treatment package.
Yes.
You know, as a reactive corrective strategy, yes, but you have to plan for it.
Yes.
So I think, you know, it needs to be there because you might have to use it, right? So you should have it as part of your treatment package for sure.
Yeah, Amir, and I think the message needs to be that if it's a treatment package, right, where again, like what she's saying, like if we're looking at long term, then yes, we have to make sure that we are really looking to use reinforcing consequences, right? But I don't want to get the message confused with that you shouldn't punish. If a student is running down the hallway, right, and and it's dangerous, right, and that's not following the expectations, we need the student to stop, right? So there's nothing to reinforce there. I need to stop running behavior. So I might say, Amir or Asma, stop running, right? And I need you to walk back to where you began running from and walk again. And now if they walk back and they walk past us, and I say, you know, Asma, thanks so much for walking. Have a great day, right? But I had to stop that behavior in order to then and get the right behavior so I could reinforce it. And so that was a very gentle and nice way, right, to stop a behavior, because by definition, punishment is something that stops and decreases the future occurrence of a behavior. And you have to do that sometimes. The problem is if you don't have enough reinforcement in the environment and it's somewhere the student or the child doesn't want to be, now you have a coercive environment. And none of us want to learn under those environments, and none of us want to work under those environments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And also too, you're teaching the learner what it is you want them to do instead. So with that, so think about if you were running trials, again, you got the ABCs, right? But sometimes the learner is going to make a mistake, right? They're going to have an incorrect response, right? And so what do? Do you let them just keep making mistakes? Nope. You don't, right? You prompt them, right? So same as Dr. Polly saying, he's prompting them, you're telling them or showing them what you need them to do instead. And then you give them an opportunity to practice that skill. That's all it is.
Yes. Yeah, I just mean translate this part because it's very important. طبعا دكتور بولي بيقول هنا ان احيانا السلوك قد يحدث وبيكون سلوك خطير جدا، فانت في لحظتها لازم توقف السلوك. لو طالب بيجري بسرعه كبيره ممكن يصطدم في طالب تاني والطالب ده يتعور او يصاب، لا لازم انت هنا تتدخل، توقف السلوك، تقول لو سمحت ما تجريش. ولما الطالب يمشي شويه شويه لازم ان احنا برضو نعزز السلوك ده عنده، وبالتالي عشان ان الطالب يكون عارف ايه المفروض يعمل. انيكا اضافت برضو قالت ان احيانا السلوك يعني الطالب اذا السلوك خطير او ممكن يسبب اذى لحد، لا لازم انت تكون عندك الادوات ان انت توقف هذا السلوك عشان تمنع ضرر ربما يحدث اكبر، وتعطي الطالب المهاره، تشوف ايه المهاره اللي ناقصه عنده وتدرسه هذه المهاره، تحاول تعرفه السلوك الكويس والسلوك الجيد اللي هو يجب انه يقوم به، وتعززه عندما يقوم بهذا السلوك. Now we can go to the more complex behavior or dangerous behavior.
Yeah. Okay. So in general, and Amir, I know that you and I are going to get on in the future to talk about like high level dangerous behavior, right? You and I and Drew are going to do this again and look at crisis
Yes, we will.
management,
Yes,
right?
yeah, we will
that's
do.
an important one.
We will do. Actually, we supposed to do it yesterday, but we will inshallah do it in October. We will be doing something about the crisis management, which يعني means ازاي نتعامل مع المشاكل السلوكية الخطيرة لو في أزمات سلوكية، ايه الخطوات اللي نمشي عليها. ف this one also we will be discussing it inshallah in another inshallah.
Yeah, and this would really and this would really come under that category. But I will just say that when you have, if you have dangerous behavior that's that intense and that's disruptive, then we do believe the student needs to be removed from the classroom, right? Because they're so disruptive and they're disrupting learning. Now, the question is, where do they go? And now, as I mentioned earlier, over here, we call it going from the to Disney World. If they're going into an environment that is rich with reinforcement, meaning well-meaning adults talking to them, counseling them, or they're being sent to the front office with a bunch of other students or somewhere where there's lots of stimulation going on, then it becomes a situation where it might not be so bad in class, but it's really great outside of the classroom, or they're being sent home. You're better to have a sterile environment set up with contingencies in place. What in our book we call the quick room, where there's like they have to do things in order to get out, right? And they can get out for good behavior, so to speak. So you have to really think about that. Now, for continued misbehavior at that level, and doesn't have to be depending on how intense it is. If it's very dangerous behavior, I would we'll go right into doing a functional behavior assessment to determine what is going on with the student and come up with a behavior intervention plan. If that takes time to do, in the meantime, I would get together with the staff to come up with a safety plan. What are we going to do if this behavior occurs, right? Because even though we're not sure about the function of why, we still need to respond in a way that is makes sense for the behavior, and then we can still hypothesize something, but until we can get to the root cause of it, right? And all adults need to be on board. When we see this happening with the student, here's what we know so far, here's what you do to try to prevent it. If they engage in this kind of behavior, here's what you should do. And if it's dangerous behavior, strongly recommend that they be trained in crisis management. Obviously, for me, it's professional crisis management because that's rooted in applied behavior analysis, but they need to be able to respond in a way that keeps the child safe, right, from hurting themselves and hurting others in a way where we don't hurt the child, right? So a safe hold, a dynamic hold using some applied behavior analysis.
Okay. طبعا احنا عاملين محاضرة أخرى إن شاء الله تكون مخصصة بالكامل للتعامل مع المشاكل السلوكية الحادة، أو إن إزاي نعمل خطة طوارئ للمشاكل السلوكية بنسميها كرايسيس مانجمنت. فإن شاء الله بإذن الله دي هنعملها إن شاء الله يمكن في أكتوبر، برضه هيكون دكتور بولي وفي ضيف آخر معاه. فبالتالي هو بيتكلم هنا لو السلوك خطير جدا، مهم جدا هو السيفتي بتاع الطالب باقي الطلاب. فهو بينصح ان احنا اذا الطالب مثلا في سلوك خطير جدا، لازم طبعا احنا نحاول نبعده عن الصف عشان ما يتعرضش الطلاب اخرين. كذلك لما نبعد عن الصف مهم جدا ان البيئه اللي هيروحها مكان يروح ما يكونش بيئه معززه، فيروح يقعد في الغرفه والطلاب يسلموا عليه وبتاع، وبالتالي السلوك قد يعني يزداد ويتكرر مره اخرى. طبعا مهم جدا اذا السلوك خطير لازم ان احنا نهتم جدا بالامان، بالسيفتي بتاع الطالب نفسه، ونهتم ايضا بالامان بتاع الطلاب، باقي الطلاب في الصف، عشان ما يكونش السلوك الخطير ده قد يؤدي الى مشاكل اكبر واكبر. Okay, so can we take some questions from the parents here in the Zoom with us?
Oh, please, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so if there is any, okay, we have some questions. So Ashna, you can ask Ashna. Ashna عمر.
نعم، مرحبا أستاذ عمر.
يعطيك العافية.
مساء الخير مستر بول and أنيكا. Hello everyone.
Hello.
شكرا أستاذ عمر. عندي سؤال. في أطفال عندهم مهارات أكاديمية جيدة ولكن عندهم التواصل ضعيف، يعني بالكلام هم ما عندوش. بس نحن لما نعمل التقييم assessment هذا الطفل يقدر يندمج في الصف العادي. هل هذا صح لما عنده مهارات أكاديمية ندمجه؟ هل في المستقبل هذا الطفل ممكن يندمج في سلوكيات غير مقبولة في الصف لأنه ما عنده تواصل جيد؟
تمام.
هذا هو السؤال.
يعطيك العافية. So she's asking that her first son or a student يعني generally he has good academic skills but he has his communication skills يعني are not in the same level as academics and they want to put him in a classroom inclusion class. So she said, is that a good decision to put him in a classroom in inclusion department? Okay, he is academically well, but his communication still he has some difficulties. What do you suggest and what do you recommend?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and thank you so much for asking it. I just want to preface it by saying, because we're not there and we can't directly see, we're talking in generalities, okay? So we can't say it's right or wrong. Any good behavior analyst would say we need to directly observe what's happening, okay? But in general, in the past, when we've seen students who might have, varying levels of communication, first of all, it's how much can they communicate? I'm not sure if we're talking about somebody who has no verbal communication at all or very limited communication. If they can't communicate well, then we'd have to build up this functional communication first, because if they get into the classroom and they can't communicate their needs, well, then, that's fundamental to learning, right? So they would probably better to have like discrete trials and build up their learning in that area. Now, the other piece is that I do believe inclusion is good, again, if they have a skill set. Can they wait for long enough? Can they learn from a distance? In other words, can somebody give instruction from 5 or 10 feet away? That's going to be important. But the good thing about inclusion is that they can learn from their peers, and there's lots of engagement and activities that can happen in there. So there are a number of variables that would have to be considered to determine whether it would be appropriate for your child to be in an inclusive setting. But there are lots of good things that can occur through inclusion if they possess the fundamental skill set to be successful. Anika, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
I was just going to just add that with the communication, the modality of communication, and whatever modality that is, if that can be taught up, so to speak. In other words, and I think, Paula, you said this, give your child the skills, or have them be taught the skills to, if he's using an AAC or an alternative augmentative communication device, if that is something that, he's using to communicate, if it's some other modality, just making sure that the learner can functionally communicate in that way, in whatever modality they're using to communicate.
Thank you so much. أستاذة عشنا، طبعا هم دكتور بولي قال إن أنا ما أقدرش أقول لك بشكل واضح يعني هل ده قرار صح أم قرار خطأ، لكن بيقول مهم جدا إن أنا أحاول إن أنا أركز على إن أنا أدرسه مهارات التواصل المهمة اللي تخليه يقدر إنه يتواصل بشكل أفضل في الصف، وأحاول أركز على المهارات. بيقول طبعا إنه مؤمن جدا بالإنكلوجن ومفيد، لكن مهم جدا إن أنا أعطيه المهارات الكافية عشان يعرف إنه يتواصل مع أقرانه في الصف، تمام، حتى لو كان أكاديميا بشكل جيد، لكن مهم أيضا إن يكون عنده المهارات التواصل المهمة اللي تقدر إن يخليه يندمج في الصف. كذلك برضو أنيكا أضافت برضه نفس الشيء قالت ان احنا لازم نركز نشوف الموداليتي او النظام اللي بيستخدمه في التواصل، ونحاول ان احنا نطور مهاراته قدر الامكان، ونحاول ان احنا نعطيه الفاندمنتال سكيلز، المهارات الاساسيه اللي تقدر تخليه يتواصل بشكل افضل، عشان كمان لما يروح نحطه في صفوف الدمج تكون فرص النجاح اكبر، بعكس لو ان هو راح وكان عنده هذه المهارات ضعيفه. Thank you so much. So we can have two more questions. أستاذة أسماء عندك سؤال، عندك أسئلة؟
أنا بكتب أهو. Okay, 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
The difficult. Yeah, no, at least.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, that is so well said, Asma. Yep. It is the science of learning.
Yes.
It's the science of teaching as well. So,
yeah.
Yes, thank you for saying that. And one of the problems is that people misunderstanding ABA and what it is and how it can be used, because our science has done a really bad job of disseminating and helping people to understand. This is part of the reason we wrote quick responses, and part of the reason we do what we do, because we want to help people see that this is the science of helping. It's a science of learning, to your point. It's a science of teaching. It's a science of parenting. It's a science of bringing out the best in people. And so, it's what we really need to focus on, putting these tools and simplifying it for people, because all you need to do is understand some basic behavioral principles to make a world of difference with everybody.
Two of my favorite, I'm sorry. I was just going to say 2 of my favorite books are written by Skinner, and it's called The Technology of Teaching.
Yes.
And then my other favorite book is written by his daughter, Dr. Julie Vargas, and it's about applying the science in the classroom. So it's a behavior analysis for teachers, and it's this beautiful, like, thick textbook that I refer to all the time. I was looking for both of them. They're on my shelf over there, but I refer, if I would show it to you, it's all tatted up and tagged up and highlighted, and I refer to them often. So yes, we are teachers as behavior analysts. For us behavior analysts, we are teachers, and we have to know, we have to understand that science of teaching. That is very important. That's what we do.
Yes, thank you so much. طبعا أستاذة أسماء كتبت كلام رائع، وأنا طبعا مؤمن جدا بده، إن هو المفروض الABA يدرس أيضا للمعلمين. أنت كمعلم لازم تعرف المبادئ بتاع الABA عشان تعرف تتعامل مع طلابك. هو أصلا الABA هو science of learning، طريقة التعلم. إحنا بنتعلم إزاي؟ المبادئ بتاع الABA أصلا هي المبادئ اللي إحنا بنتعلم بيها، اللي سلوك معين بيتكرر، سلوك آخر ما بيتكررش. فبالتالي المعلم اللي بيكون عنده خلفية عن الABA بيكون أكثر نجاحا مع طلابه. ولذلك احنا بنعمل الوركشوبس دي، وبالذات حلقة اليوم، عشان أنا عايز المعلمين يعرف إن المبادئ بتاع الABA تقدر تستخدمها مع طلابك في الصف. ويعني أنا عندي حلم إن شاء الله بإذن الله نقدر ندخل الABA المدارس، وإن الطلاب students in the school they will get also ABA. يعني why not? ABA can be applied in a classroom, can be applied in a school setting، ونقدر نستخدمه مع كل طالب. واي معلم، انا ديما بقول كده، احنا محتاجين نتعلم اكتر عن الABA. فطبعا يعني النقاط دي هامه جدا، وانا بشجع المعلمين ديما انهم يحاولوا يطلعوا، يسمعوا، يقراوا ABA. انا by the way Dr. Bolly and I'm a teacher. Okay, basically I'm a teacher. I have been working here in Kuwait for about more than 15 years in special education, and I do believe in ABA because I see with my eyes when I use my ABA how my classroom is more engagement, how my students paired with me, and I believe in ABA, and that's why I'm doing all these workshops and all these seminars and inviting different guests just to disseminate ABA. We want people to come to know more about ABA. So this is like something that is my mission, is to spread, to disseminate ABA. It comes to, we have one question here that was posted in earlier. They said that I think we will have 2 more questions and then we will be finishing. There was one question that if there is a student who screams suddenly with no reason in a classroom, how we can tackle this behavior?
I'm going to go back to so that would be one of the times that need to be addressed. I believe. Again, we got to think about the function. Why are did they scream because they want to escape work? Well, if we send them out of the class and we allow them to escape work, then that's a problem. I would think about if they want to if they're engaged in something they like and they got frustrated, but they were disruptive, this might be a chance for a timeout, right? If they, or it might be a time for a demerit, like, you know what, you scream out in classroom and you lost this point, that you're going to get something. It could be an action plan where it's like, you scream out in classroom, you're gonna have to write during your free time, you're gonna have to write, what you did, how it impacts you, how it impacts other people. It could be, again, these are planned consequences. It could be that you get a parent call home, about this, but there's got to be some sort of corrective consequence that's in place and it's functionally, but we still are going to eventually need to get down to, if it happens again, right? If it's repetitive, then we need to know why they're screaming. Do they not like the work? Is it too challenging for them? Is it that the teacher's going up and the teacher's wonderful, so the teacher's soothing them, right? So now that's happening for teacher attention. Is it that their peers are like laughing or smiling, or later on they'll go to them and say, oh, you look like you're having a tough time? So we can use any of those consequences that I just mentioned: time out, restitution would involve apologizing to the class for indeed being disruptive. It could be get the parent contact. So any of these things, but if it's repetitive, we got to get down to the why it's occurring so we can apply the right consequence. Because if we give a timeout and they want to escape, well, we just reinforce that behavior, which means we'll see more of it again in the future.
Okay, Anika?
No, I think that was pretty pretty well said. I don't have much to add to that. But I did, it was buried under my other book, so I wanted to just show you that it's here.
Okay, good.
Nice, Bob. That's Julie's, Dr. Vargas's book.
Dr. Julie Vargas, okay, good.
Dr. Julie Vargas, that's her book.
He's
and then
the daughter of Skinner,
That's
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So they both wrote books on teaching. So there you go.
That's amazing. بالنسبة للسؤال بتاع الطفل اللي بيصرخ، دكتور بولي برضو أكد إن إحنا لازم نعرف إيه السبب بتاعه. تمام، يعني إيه سبب الصراخ؟ هل الصراخ ده ليه سبب معين؟ وبالتالي نرجع برضو نشوف البيئة، نشوف الأنشطة، نشوف الأشياء الأخرى. وطبعا أنا لو الطالب طبعا كان عنده مثلا أوتيزم، يبقى مهم إن إحنا برضو نشرك، نشوف إذا هل السلوك ده سببه حسي. طبعا دي نقطة من عندي أنا بضيفها. هل السلوك ليه أسباب حسية؟ أستطيع بأن أنا أستعين بالناس المختصين في المشاكل الحسية. We will take one more question from Iman, and then we will be finishing after this. Iman, you can.
Hello, everyone, and good morning for the people the other side of the world. It's really useful workshop. I really like it. Thank you so much. I'm Iman. I have been working with the students of autism for 10 years. And this year I have a very challenged behavior. And I have a boy, he's 11 years old. He's in a normal school here in Kuwait. But unfortunately, the level is too high for him, but somehow the parents want him to be in a normal school. But this boy, he has so much stimming, so much flapping. We watch his food, no much sweets, lots of activities. We keep him busy. For a while, it's work with him. But unfortunately, since the school start, his routines change, the stimming become much more. So my question, should I consider it as a OT, like he need more OT sessions, or it's a behavior? I'm so confused between both of them.
Well, typically if we intervene, from a behavioral perspective, we have to determine it. It sounds like it, again, I'm not there, so I can't see, but it sounds like it's impacting his learning. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So you certainly want to think about what his hands could be doing instead, potentially, generally, again, this is generally, what his hands might be doing instead, so that he's not engaging in the behavior that's impacting his learning and his ability to do other things. But also it might be a good idea to get consult with some related service providers like OT or PT, and they may be able to help in that way. There might be some other sensory or medical things going on that, that you're not aware of, or, maybe it's asking, the parents more questions, and people who know him very well, to kind of find out what might be the next steps and what you can build in terms of intervention.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So now this amazing session unfortunately come to the end now. I'm very thankful to you, Dr. Bolly, for your amazing time, and you, Anika, also for your valuable time. We learned a lot of things.
Well, I'll tell you, it's an honor to have been asked to share. And Amara, what you're doing is wonderful, helping to spread the science across the world. More people need to understand it and be exposed to it. So this is just an amazing opportunity that you provided us to share in what we value and passion. We really want to help people. And for everybody that's taking the time out of their late night over there to spend with us, thanks for spending an hour and a half with your life with us. We wish we could be over there and meet you all personally and hang out and learn together. It would be wonderful. Maybe one day it'll happen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Bolly. And by the way, I read your book, Quick Responses. This is an amazing book, and I really recommend it to everyone, especially if you are working in a school setting. This book has lots of tips, lots of recommendations that will help you as a teacher to deal with students. So it is a really amazing book. I really like it.
Yeah, I just checked out the link. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much. It's been amazing, and always amazing to hear you guys and get from the source refresher all the time. Thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank you, Mr. Amr. Thank you for putting all this together and enhancing our day-to-day knowledge in ABA and science.
Thank you so much, thank you so much, Dr. Bolly, and thank you, Anika. And I'm really happy to have you here. And inshallah, in the future, we may plan more of these sessions to disseminate ABA here in Middle East, and people come to know more about ABA. Thank you so much.
I would love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well, everybody.
Take care.
يعطيك العافية. الله يعافيك. الله يعافيك.
مع السلامة.
مع السلامة.
عافية أستاذ عمر.
الله يعافيك أستاذ أسماء. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you, inshallah, in another session soon, inshallah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.